Can you take us back to the beginning? How did you discover your passion for the arts and storytelling?
Absolutely. So it was actually when I took my first acting class. I was doing modeling before I did acting. And I know that sounds like the cringe model slash actor hyphen. But I just thought I would audit an acting class, which is just watching one to see how I liked it. And that was Railtown Actor Studio in Vancouver, where I'm from. And it was really intense. And I'll say that watching that intensity and seeing that acting was so much harder than I actually thought it was, that challenge is what made me want to do it.
Look at your career as a whole. Who or what would you say has had the biggest influence, either personally or professionally?
The biggest influence on my career, I'm tempted to just say me. Probably my mom, I think. I think my mom's had a really kind of unique and interesting life that's sort of been in so many different directions. And I think that gave me the confidence to just keep going forward in what I wanted to do. In terms of actors, I really love actors like Eddie Redmayne because I think
Mhm.
that as somebody who's sort of like in between a lead and a character actor, or kind of both at the same time, I like somebody like him because he really does play a character each time, but there's this kind of through line of like a charm in all of them that I really love.
Definitely. In addition to being an actor, you're also a writer, a director, and a producer. How have your experiences behind the camera impacted the way that you approach your work on screen and vice versa?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been pretty cool. I've done so far just two projects where I've both written, directed, and then been in front of the camera at the same time. And in terms of trying to achieve what I want from the actors, it has made me kind of have more epiphanies about what acting is and how to work with the director and that sort of thing. Um, I think that you have a better understanding of why a director might get frustrated at times, or you know what it's like to be on the other end of like when you're not really understanding a note and you see what how it feels on the other end of it. And then I think that it helps me be more flexible. I think on both sides. I think like if the actor's really not getting my note, try something else, you know? And
Mhm.
similarly, like just be more flexible, more present, and really kind of listen actively and drop whatever I thought the scene was going to be and just go with it.
You've got a new show out now. Can you tell us about Sugar Highs, your character, and what drew you this project?
Absolutely. So, Sugar Highs is about three roommates who are struggling financially and decide to try getting sugar daddies and sugar mommies. Um, and my character, his name is Bud, and it's actually his idea. It's like this comedy of errors where he goes on a date with his dance school crush in this beautiful apartment. And he says, "How do you afford this place?" And the guy says, "My daddy," which he assumes is a sugar daddy. You'll see what that is.
Yeah.
But anyways, he gets on this trajectory of becoming a sugar baby and getting his roommates to be sugar daddies as well, playing pimp to them, managing their profiles, taking their pictures, doing all that, even like setting up their dates. So he's kind of like the pimp, HBIC, head bitch in charge kind of
Yeah,
thing. Um, and kind of the heart and like fun of the show.
definitely.
And then what I would say drew me to the material, I've always found this phenomenon really interesting. And I think it's like it's different depending on what community you're in or what sex, gender you are. I do think it is definitely a different story when it comes to like male identifying sugar babies versus female identifying sugar babies. I think it's just an interesting story, and I think that the way that the show tells it is more character focused. So it's not
Mhm.
just a show about sugar babies and sugar daddies. It's like
Yeah,
here are the characters. We're going to get into like why these guys are all doing what they're doing, why the sugar daddies are in their positions. You know, the his like reasons why an older man maybe he wasn't out in his younger age and he could never have love with a man. Here's his chance at 70 to experience some form of intimacy.
definitely. This is your first project as a lead. Has anything surprised you about the experience thus far? What's been the biggest takeaway?
Yeah, I think that like so in the first season, I would say I'm a series lead, but it's more so split between the three of us.
Yeah.
In the second season that we just filmed, that's not yet out, the director himself said that I am the clear lead of the show. And I think that when you really are the lead, you experience sort of what it means not just to be the lead, but to lead the whole thing. Um, and that is sort of an element where you almost end up being, by no means am I a producer, but in a way you sort of are like, you're really helping get the best out of anybody on set. Yourself, you're helping things move more quickly, getting the ball rolling. And I think, yeah, I think it's the sort of leadership aspect of it. I know like on the first day, I kind of like looked around and was like, oh my God, like this is a lot of pressure. But then you sort of kind of embrace that power and you start to, in a way, love it.
And like you're saying, the show focuses on these three roommates, and there's such a great chemistry that comes off the screen between all of you. How are you all able to build that bond?
So again, not to toot my own horn, but we were sort of just thrown into it, and I felt it was important that we all bonded a bit.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a contact list or anybody for anybody, but I knew that Joey was in the hotel room next to me, who plays Tab. So I started out by like putting a note under his door, being like, "Hey, we should connect." And then we connected, and then I asked for Sam, who plays Mickey's contact, and we hung out a couple times. We're all pretty different in real life, but I think it actually translates really well on screen. It's like because they are friends and like a chosen family, but there also is the roommate element as well. Like these
Yeah.
guys met each other through roommate ads. And I think what's nice in the second season, both on and off screen, was like coming into it a year later, we just like instantly kind of felt like family. And Sam, who plays Mickey, he's quite young, so it's interesting to see him like grow up a little bit over a year, and yeah, he's like a little brother to me.
And this series does such a beautiful job balancing comedy and drama. For you as a storyteller, is one more challenging than the other?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting when it's a mix of the two genres because I think you like when you're preparing a comedy scene, you prepare it pretty thoroughly and it's like quite measured and calculated. A drama scene, you would probably go into it a little bit more loose, just kind of dropping in, taking your time. So I think the challenge can sometimes be on a show like this where it does kind of go back and forth between the
Yeah.
two. Is similar to what we said earlier about sort of like letting go of what your idea of the scene might be. There are scenes where like I'd identify it as like, okay, this is a funny scene, like have fun with it, whatever. And then we do it, and it's like, oh wait, it's actually supposed to be like a more serious, sad scene or whatever. Or the other way around, like you prepare and you think it's kind of like a whatever scene or a dramatic scene, and then it's like, no, 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 this is a comedy, remember? So I think the biggest challenge would be when it isn't what you expected, but again, you just find a way to drop whatever you thought it was going to be present in the moment with the other actors, the environment, and what the director wants.
Speaking of that preparation, there's this really intense confrontation between your character and his mother at a dining room table. For you as an actor, how did you create the space for yourself to dive into that moment, especially given the fact that your relationship with your mother is so different from Bud and his mother?
Totally. Yeah, that was an interesting scene to play. I mean, as much as I am really close with my parents, I think that like everybody has had a moment like that. Maybe not for the same reason, but I think we've all had a moment where our parents have disapproved of something that we've done. And I think, yeah, I think what kind of resonated the most for me with that scene was just sort of the like for my character really thinking that this was a positive thing for him, regardless of what society thinks. He thinks being a sugar baby helps him advance his life further, large sums of money, so he can just focus on dance and what he really wants to do. And his mom obviously is not approving of it for the reasons society wouldn't approve of it. And I think it's that sort of like what resonated for me and how I dropped in was that sort of discord between the two. And though, yeah, my parents in real life are not the most interventional. Of course, they've had interventions about various things over the years. I'm not perfect. So, yeah, I think that there was a way. And I think I really loved the actors who played um, Fern, my mom, and then the stepdad, Larry. They really, I don't know, they're just really solid actors, and it was easy to connect with them.
Like you're just saying,
Yeah.
you get to explore so many different layers of your character. Now that the first season is out on Out TV, is there a scene in particular that you were really excited for audiences to see? Was there one that you were nervous about?
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple sex scenes that I was a little nervous about. I had no idea what they were going to look like. In terms of like like so many family and friends were excited about me being a lead on a show.
Yeah.
And of course, we're like, oh, like we'll watch it as a family with our kids. And I'm like, oh. But the feedback actually from like parents and like friends' parents and stuff is that they weren't bothered by the nudity at all, which I think speaks to the nudity just being a part of the world of the show and less of
Mm.
just like kind of a selling point. It's
Yeah.
not just gratuitous nudity.
Yeah.
It's because it's about, love and romance and all that. Um, in terms of excited, I was pretty excited for the date scene with Ella, the sugar mama. I knew all that stuff would be hilarious, and it is. I was excited for the dance scenes because I'm more of like a freestyle, like self-taught dancer, and I had to do actual choreography for the
Mm.
show. So I was excited to see how that turned out, and it actually looks quite good. I'm like, is that me? And then yeah, I think that like the scenes with Clark, like the love interest, are kind of cool because it like I've done some romantic stuff before, but this is like that would be like the deepest romantic connection I've done on screen. So it's kind of interesting to watch that play out.
Yeah, we know that season two is going to be on its way. Is there anything that you can tease about what's ahead for Bud and the rest of his roommates?
Sure. Yeah. So as I said, Bud is more at the center of things in the second season. I would say that I don't want to give too much away about the current season, but obviously he ends in a different place than he starts. And so that is kind of his starting point in season two. And in the words of the director, Bud is even more brazen in the second season, so more aggressive. It does feel like a shift character-wise between the two seasons. He's more aggressive. He's not afraid to like yell at his roommates, demand things from them. There's some fun. There's a fun enemy. I feel like that's a big
Mm.
piece. There's a fun
That,
enemy that comes in season two. And yeah, and there's a mix of old and new daddies. Yeah,
that's a great
and
teaser.
and a lot of trying and failing.
One final question for you. This is such an exciting time in your career. As you look ahead to the next 5 to 10 years, is there a dream role or story that you would love to bring to life, either as an actor, producer, writer, or director?
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently working on something that I wrote that I found a showrunner for, so that's really exciting. And it's like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants meets Spice World meets RuPaul's Drag Race, and that's a lot
Mm.
of fun. In terms of just roles on my own, I would really love to do. I know there is some romance in this show, but I would love to do like a kind of like, well, not exactly traditional, but like like a romantic movie or romantic comedy. I think in real life, like love is not as idealistic as it is in movies, and I think it would be
Mhm.
really kind of lovely to live out like the romance that you see on TV or in movies.